Hello everyone and welcome back to Flashback Fridays. I'm sticking with the Star Wars universe for the moment and looking back to the 1990s at the Power of the Force 2 line from Kenner. If you've seen any of my other recent videos in this series, you'll know I've been paying particular attention to their vehicle line, and probably the most exciting part of the 3 3/4 scale line they ever produced. In today's video, I'm going to look at the Chicken Walker, or the Imperial AT-ST. Now sadly, mine is in a little bit of a state of disrepair. It doesn't have its box, but you can see it here. Of course, it has that standard Power of the Force 2 line branding. You can see Darth Vader's helmet in the top of the packaging. You have the Star Wars logo. You have an image of the Chicken Walker itself, a production photo of the toy, which looks really cool. And then we have that lightsaber branding behind it, which is really effective, and it's really lovely seeing this packaging all these years later, because it always used to give me a thrill when I saw it in the toy shelves all those years ago. And when we look at the back of the packaging, we can see they've taken a much simpler approach to the design. It is essentially just a blank canvas, just a black void there, and we have these very crystal clear images of the action features of the toy itself. This still looks really attractive. It's still quite fun to see this on display, but at the very bottom of the packaging we see the other vehicles that were available in this line, and I've covered a few of these on my channel already. Now, as I mentioned, mine has seen better days. It's a little bit beaten up here and there, but you can still definitely get the impression of what this vehicle was like, and it is a lot of fun. Whilst the proportions and sculpting isn't 100% exact, I think they've done a pretty nice approximation. There's some nice detailing in here. We see individual wires and bits of armor plating and grooves and bits and pieces like that give it a lot of texture, which is quite nice. The other thing that's very nice about it is they went to the extra effort to include some shading on this vehicle as well, just to give it a bit more texture and depth. And I'm pleased to say that this is a really effective way of making this vehicle feel authentic, like it's actually seen some wear and tear across the years as it's been fighting rebel soldiers. It looks really cool. Now, I did want to point out that this vehicle does actually have stickers, transfers. Mine sadly doesn't have these applied. I don't know what happened there, but as you can see from this photo here, obviously it did have these red and orange stickers on the side panels of the vehicle. Now, it's not an awful lot, but it does add a little splash of colour here and there, and this gives it a little bit more vibrancy and colour on what is pretty much a very dull grey metallic vehicle otherwise. The vehicle has 3 separate sets of armaments. The first is this laser cannon at the front of the head that can be moved up and down. The second is a pair of smaller armaments on the side of the head that can be moved up and down as well, and these sort of ratchet into place so you can put them in any position you want. And then finally, at the very top of the vehicle, there is an individual handgun or rifle that slides into the very top of the vehicle. Now sadly, this is missing on mine, but we can see by looking at the original packaging that this is placed just in front of the Stormtrooper so he can get hold of this and use it to shoot his enemies. Now, the top of the cockpit opens up. You can see there is a seat inside. I'm pretty sure this would have included some transfers and stickers originally to put on the side panels to just brighten this up a little bit and make it look a bit more authentic. Mine obviously is lacking this, sadly. And then if we look at the very bottom of the vehicle, we can see there's this nice red paint wash running through the feet and the bottom of the legs here. This gives it a sense of mud or perhaps rust, and it just makes this vehicle feel a little bit more lived in, a little bit more worn, which is fantastic, but also gives it a splash of colour as well to make it feel a little bit more authentic and make it feel a bit more fun and colourful. This vehicle does have an action feature, of course. At the very back of the vehicle, you'll notice there is this switch. If you switch this into the loose position like so, and press the big button down at the back of the vehicle, it will simulate the Chicken Walker walking. And then when you want the vehicle to stand stationary again, you have to place it down and lock the legs into position. Otherwise, it will have a tendency to fall over. Now, as we saw, this vehicle will hold one vehicle in the cockpit, and we have 2 options. We have this upper manhole where we can slide the figure in here, or we can lift the entire cockpit compartment and have him seated inside. And thankfully, they did produce an AT-ST driver especially for this vehicle, so we can take him, bend his legs, and then put him inside the cockpit there. Now, his helmet always seems to just stick ever so slightly shy of the smooth run of this vehicle, but thankfully, the upper cockpit will slide over his head neatly, and it's quite comfortable. When we slide him into the cockpit itself through the manhole, this still looks really cool, and is probably the most effective way to display this particular vehicle with the driver, because at least we can see him in action. So this is really cool. I think this is a really fun look, and I think it looks really good. In terms of the scaling, it's pretty much approximate to what we see on screen. I'm not sure if it's 100% accurate, but it looks pretty cool. And whilst we're talking about the ATST driver, let's take a look at his original packaging, his original card art. As you can see, it is consistent with the branding, Darth Vader's helmet, and then we have that wonderful green lightsaber branding behind him. This is really cool. Now, we do have an image there of an ATST driver, I guess taken from Return of the Jedi. Now, sometimes on these cards, this would actually be a gold foil sticker rather than just a straight up photo image, as is it the case here. The figure itself is nicely sculpted and moulded. There's actually a fair amount of detail here, which is surprising for a character that essentially has quite a bland uniform. They've actually done a fair bit to introduce many creases and wrinkles and individual pockets, and it's really nice to see the Imperial logo on his shoulder there as well. Articulation wise, there are just the standard 6 points. He has a swivel at the top of the head, a swivel at the top of the shoulder, a swivel at the waist, and then a final swivel at the top of the hips. Accessories wise, he came with the standard blaster rifle, but he also came with this rather hefty looking piece of equipment, which I think is unique to this character. I don't think any other figure got this weapon repackaged at any point, but I might be wrong on that. Either way, he holds it very, very comfortably and snugly in his grip, and it looks pretty cool, if a little bit exaggerated to what we actually see in the film. And then to show the scale between the figure and the vehicle, here they are standing together. So as you can see, the Chicken Walker is pretty sizable actually with the 3 3/4 inch scale figures, and it's pretty impressive. So I'm not quite sure whether this is entirely accurate scale wise to what we see in the film or what is official in the Star Wars universe, but this is a pretty good approximation, and it gives you a sense of just the kind of thing you can do with these toys. I love the vehicles in the Power of the Force line. I think it's what makes this collection really, really fun, and it's lovely world building if nothing else. So there you go. As I said, mine's a little bit battered, doesn't have the transfers, and he sadly is missing his box, but I hope this gives you a fair approximation to understand what this actually is like as a vehicle. Really fun toy, and definitely worth adding to the collection if you can track one down. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like, and remember to subscribe as there'll be plenty more videos soon.